Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never practice nunchucks in a crowded room. Never eat chole before a road trip. Always take your shirt off before you iron it. Don't take a call near a swimming pool. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
If you see a smile on my face after a few grim days, that's because there is good news. And because there is good news, we are talking about it. The good news is, see this plane landing on an airstrip around which there doesn't seem to be very much. This is the first airstrip at Navi Mumbai Airport, the new airport being built on the other side of the sea from Mumbai in the Maharashtra mainland, so to speak, because Mumbai is an island city. This is the Navi Mumbai Airport. The first flight landed there today. It was fittingly an Indian Air Force flight, Indian Air Force aircraft, a C-295, which is now being produced in India domestically between the Tatas and Airbus. So one, good news because it was the first landing on a new airport that's coming up for Mumbai. And second, because it was also the new aircraft of Indian Air Force, which will be built jointly in India with the Indian private sector. That's a big change as well. That we have talked about in the past. We've already talked about the C-295 project in a separate episode of Cut The Clutter some time back, of which we'll share a link with you with the description underneath this video. That said, look at this airstrip. What's the big deal about a plane landing on an airstrip? The big deal is that this is the beginning of Mumbai having its second airport. Now think about it. Every great city in the world, every great city that you've been to, New York has multiple airports. It has JFK, then across a little bit of a pond, it has Newark International. It also has the shuttle port. It has LaGuardia, and then airports in its vicinity, right? London has Heathrow with its multiple terminals, Gatwick, Stansted, Luton, City Airport, many others. Every city, you name any city, it has multiple airports. India, on the other hand, does not have multiple airports. All of our big cities, now you might say that, oh, India is not at the same income level or India is not at the same development level. But the fact is, India has among the fastest growing aviation businesses in India. More and more Indians are flying. Indian aviation carriers, Indian airlines are now placing the largest orders in the world for new aircraft. So Indians are flying. I sometimes say in my facetious moments that maybe India does not need a bullet train because India already has a bullet train. It's just called Indigo Airlines, right? Because there are so many planes going everywhere and Air India is growing now in a big way. Others are coming up. So India is a huge booming aviation market, and for Indians, such a large population, this is very important infrastructure. The second thing is that it isn't just passengers who fly, it's also the cargo. So in fact, there are international yardsticks or indices that tell you that development of a city or of a place, you can see a direct correlation between the development and the growth and the shifting of cargo from surface to air. This was seen most remarkably in the case of the new airport that the Chinese built, or that Hong Kong built, I'd say, in new territories. That is away from the old Hong Kong airport called Kai Tak. I don't know how old you are, but if you're about my vintage, you might remember the single runway Kai Tak airport in Kowloon, where landing and takeoffs were all really hairy. And the joke used to be that when you're coming into land, you come through those apartment buildings in Kowloon, and if you have a sharp enough eye, you can perhaps check out the size of the underwear drying on the clothesline from people's balconies. There were cases of planes going off that runway because that was a runway and airport almost in the middle of the sea, like a tiny island in itself. There was also a storied case of a Chinese airliner actually going into water and the pilots then getting out without bothering about the passengers who were rescued later. Nevertheless, Hong Kong built another huge new airport. That airport in new territories turned around Hong Kong's economy. And that is seen globally in all analysis as an example that an airport, particularly in a big port hub, in a place which has a lot of commerce, lots of goods coming in and going out, there the percentage of shift or the rate of shift in cargo traffic from surface, that is the sea, to air, that itself adds to growth and development. And that's where Indian cities have been lacking. Delhi has belatedly now started building. It's not in Delhi, it's in another state. It's in Jewar in Uttar Pradesh, across the river from Delhi. Good enough, it's close enough to Delhi because that area is linked very well with Delhi with now new expressways. That airport's coming up, that will take some time. Mumbai, on the other hand, started work much earlier. That airport is now coming up. The first runway is becoming ready. There's a lot of work that still remains to be done, and it's being done at breakneck speed. I'm sure the government would have wanted to have the airport start operations before these elections, possibly, most likely this November. That will not happen, but at least now there is a demonstration flight. A few more take place like that, demonstration or trial flights. However, the target right now is that the first commercial flights will come in March of 2025, about 6 months from now. Now, the important thing is that this is an airport in a place where scale is possible, because Bombay's current airport, which is the heart of India's aviation in many ways, because Mumbai is India's commercial hub. That airport is not very different from Kaitak Airport. It may be a little bit bigger, but it's in so many ways, it's like Kaitak used to be. It's a single runway airport, single runway, another smaller runway, which runs at 90 degrees. So you can't have two runways operating simultaneously. If you have a congestion on one, or something happens on one, or if an aircraft gets stuck on one, you can use the other one. So these are not parallel runways. So this is effectively a single runway airport. Already, it's handling about 53 million passengers. And when people say, oh, I'm coming to Delhi from such and such place, and I will see you at this time if my flight's on time, I ask them, which city are you coming from? If you're coming from any other city, most likely you will land on time. But if you're coming from Mumbai, all bets are off. You may even sit on the plane on time. Your plane may even close doors on time, but there is always a queue for takeoff as well as landing in Mumbai. So it's been a great shame that Mumbai has had such poor infrastructure for a long time. This new airport fulfills one of those gaps, because not only is the new airport coming up, but it's coming up in the mainland. So there is a lot more land is available. It's a large airport. A large piece of land has been acquired for it. That is 2,268 hectares. 2.5 acres approximately in 1 hectare. So it's a lot of area, of which 1,160 hectares will be used for aeronautical purposes. The rest for airside development. You've seen these aero cities come up everywhere, because an airport, a big commercial airport, is a mini city in itself. And that is what's going to come up in Navi Mumbai. The good thing is that even before the airport could be built, the Trans-Harbour Link, the Mumbai Trans-Harbour Link, has been built. We've spoken about this. You can see pictures. Now, I see sometimes, particularly on social media, people complaining that there is so little traffic on this Trans-Harbour Link. It took so much money, it took so much effort to build this. Is this a waste? No infrastructure is a waste. What will now happen is, once the airport starts functioning, Trans-Harbour Link will then give people using this airport a very quick into the city, because Trans-Harbour Link would bring people straight into the eastern side of the city. And then east-west connectivity is also being built in what is, after all, a narrow island. And meanwhile, the metro lines are also coming up. So Mumbai infrastructure is undergoing a revolution. We've seen the coastal road come up. We are now seeing the metro lines come up. Eastern Freeway had already come up. Then Trans-Harbour Link and the new Navi Mumbai Airport. What will also happen is, this will ease the traffic on the usual north-south artery of Mumbai, because everybody lands at one airport, comes into the city. Everybody who has to take a flight goes to the same airport. all of this goes through that one artery. Mumbai now will have a second center point, and once again it's on the mainland. Mainland means there is land available. Now there were many challenges with building this airport. This wasn't just like acquiring any land, and it wasn't just like acquiring any land and building, because after all, building an airport is not such a cutting edge, challenging, high tech business. You can build an airport if you have the money, the civil construction ability, civil engineers, and also the land. Acquiring land in this area was much tougher. It was tough in Jewar as well, in the greater Noida area, because there were lots of villagers who wanted a better price, etc. And there were agitations. But in this place, first of all, there were 10 villages, 10 small villages. The other important thing is, this is a tidal area. This is very close to the coast. It's a tidal area. This area gets water in high tide, so you have to fill up the area. There were a couple of hillocks which had to be flattened. Flattening a hillock in India is a very complicated thing because it needs environmental clearances. Most of it was in CRZ1, various categories of CRZ1, that is Coastal Regulation Zone 1. Some was also in CRZ3, Coastal Regulation Zone 3. Those are really sensitive tidal areas with flora and fauna and mangroves, and also there were two rivers. Now these two rivers, the question always arose as to what these rivers were. And that's why, while the airport was conceptualized in 1997, by the way, just coincidentally, is also the year when China has been handed back Hong Kong, right? So 1997, the airport was conceptualized. It took 10 years after that for the airport to get central government approval. 10 years. 2007, UPA 1, it got approval, but then it got stuck for environmental clearances. There was the tidal issue, there was the coastal regulation zone issue, but the issue also was one that some mangroves might have to be cut. And second, that there were these two hill features that will have to be flattened. Can you flatten hills under your environmental law? And second, there were these two river courses. One of these rivers had to be diverted and the other had to be channelized. And that was a big question. Can you really do it? So Ulve River was to be diverted, which has now been done. And Ghadi River, Ghadi, Ghadi River had to be channelized, which has also been done. In the course of time, after the usual delays that take place in these situations, in about 3 years, environmental clearances were given. First, they were denied because there was this hillocks which couldn't be flattened, and also these rivers whose course could not be changed or which could not be channelized. Now the clearance was given, saying that, oh, these hillocks are there, but they are about 2 meters or 3 meters too short to be called hillocks which can't be destroyed. So for something to be defined as a hill, it has to have a minimum height, maybe 90 meters or something. So maybe it was 2 meters less than that. So these could be blasted. And also, these were not really rivers. These were tidally assisted water courses. You know the system. When it wants to stop something, it can stop anything. When it wants to clear something, it can clear anything. So about 2010-11, these clearances came. By that time, as we know, UPA was getting very weak and their ability to start a very major product was very, very limited. And that's when there was policy paralysis and many of these projects got held up. This one also got held up. By 2014, after the clearances, this airport was to start operations by 2014. The initial budget was 10,000 crores. Now it's 18,000. I'm sure it will go greatly upwards of that, but it's in the private sector, joint sector, but mostly private. 74% the private operator, which used to be GVK Group, the GVK Group, which ran Mumbai International Airport Limited. We know as part of the private airport concession agreements, any current operator of a major airport, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, will have the first right of refusal on another airport coming up within the 150-kilometer radius of that airport. That's why MIAL under GVK had the rights to 74% equity in this project. 26% equity remains with Maharashtra Government's corporation, which is CIDCO, or City and Industrial Development Corporation. So it's a 74% private sector, 26% state sector partnership. Now, money will be found by the private sector mostly, and they will recover it from commercial operations. This is going to be a large airport because unlike the old Mumbai airport, this will have ultimately two very long parallel runways. So the biggest planes, also the heaviest cargo aircraft will be able to land there and will also be able to clear out quickly. The runway length will be 3.7 kilometers, and by 2032, in the first phase, this will handle 12 million passengers. To put this in perspective, Mumbai's old airport right now, which is creaking under the weight of traffic, right, that handles about 53 million passengers right now, and it really is full up, right? This airport will take 12 million to begin with, and by 2032, it will be handling 90 million passengers. That's why in the course of time, this will become a real powerhouse, not just for Mumbai, but for all of India. Now, the fact is that the first flight is landing on what was planned in 1997 now, 27 years later. That's the kind of time it takes in our country to build any major infrastructure project. There were also controversies at every stage of the airport construction. The last one being, in fact, the fact that Adani Group took over the GVK share. They bought over from GVK Mumbai Airport, and alongside that, they also got the rights or their shareholding in the Navi Mumbai International Airport project. So that also lent itself to some controversy. However, that work has gone on. Important controversies, the most important controversies, besides what I told you just about, which was the environmental issue, was the land acquisition issue, because there were people living in this area. There were 10 villages which had to be emptied out, right? There were protests, people wanted more. Those negotiations went on. Those negotiations were mostly finished by 2014, but once again, blocks came, and because of these delays, and interesting causes caused these delays, which I will tell you about, because these things only happen in India, like who will the airport be named after? I will tell you more about it. So even though Prime Minister Modi laid the foundation stone of the new airport construction in February 2018, delays have kept on coming. In fact, even in the middle of 2018, it was still not possible for the operators to start blasting these hills and carrying out other civil work because of local protests. And R.N. Chaubey, who was Civil Aviation Secretary then, he said that I don't even think that this work can start by 2019. However, things moved faster than imagined, and both governments, that is the MVA government and after that Mahayuti government. Ajit Pawar was Deputy Chief Minister in both, so maybe that helped as well. Both worked in the same direction and the work started. The environmental issue, however, had also become a kind of a national issue. It had become a national issue because alongside that, and this was during the half decade of suspicion or semi-decade of suspicion, beginning 2009 with the victory of UPA 2 and ending with UPA 2 and the arrival of Narendra Modi and BJP and NDA. That is when UPA began to lose its credibility, and there was an impression about anything the UPA did was actually a scam. And that's why word spread that the reason the UPA was in such a hurry to have this airport constructed was to benefit a particular corporate who had acquired all this land around this airport in Navi Mumbai, or maybe whose land will also be acquired for Navi Mumbai Airport and who will make a lot of money in the process. So the whole project was actually being envisaged to benefit that corporate who had acquired that land. First of all, whether or not a corporate had acquired the land on which the airport was going to be located or somewhere close to it is a different issue. All I'd like to tell you is that wasn't the corporate which is now building the airport. It wasn't Adani. This, however, became a very murky situation. So I wrote a series of articles then, national interest articles, saying that the airport should be built, these clearances should be given, Mumbai can't be denied a second airport, every great city must have a second airport. Suppose one has to be shut down for whatever reason, God forbid, terror attacks, right? You can't be held to ransom like that. Your commercial capital can't be held to ransom like that. So I also faced attacks. including by a very well-known author who I shall not mention because let bygones be bygones. A very well-known author who wrote like 2.5 pages in his book without naming me, saying one, I don't know whether he said eminent or not or prominent, something like that, editor who's supporting a project like this so as to benefit his corporate friends. I tell you the story only to underline how sensitive big infrastructure projects in India are. And then finally, what caused further delays. In 2021, when it looked like the airport was going to become a reality soon, because much of the civil work had been carried out, much of the heavy civil work like blasting of mountains, re-regulating, changing the course of Ulbe River, and also channelizing the Ghadi River. At that point, an organization was formed in the area. This was called Navi Mumbai International Airport Namkaran Action Committee, right? आपका बच्चा होता है, child is born, then you call whatever priest and say Namkaran karo, name the child, right? Or if you have a building, name the building or name your colony. Colony builders now mainly pick up neighborhoods from the US or London, like Downing Street or Beverly Hills, etc. Not here. This was taken seriously. So this organization was formed and they launched an agitation, and they said this airport must be named after D.B. Patil. Now, who was D.B. Patil? D.B. Patil was an old socialist leader and a local activist, full name being Dinkar Balu Patil. In the 70s and 80s, when the new mini city was coming up in Navi Mumbai, he is the one who had led many agitations, one against land acquisition and second to get a better price for those who were losing their land. So he was held in very high respect, and these agitators said that you have to name the airport after him. This led to big agitations in May 2021 in Thane, Palghar, Raigad, etc. On June 10, the state government decided that they were going to name it after Balasaheb Thackeray. Now, can you imagine how strong was the emotion locally that they could even fight with the appeal of Balasaheb Thackeray? So state government said, we'll name it after Balasaheb Thackeray. These agitators said, go to hell. You can decide what you want, but if you do not name it after D.B. Patil, this airport's not going to be built. So that led to many more negotiations. June 21 that year, there was a huge rally. Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi, MVA government, on its last day held a cabinet meeting and accepted that this will be named after D.B. Patil. Once that happened in June 2022, then Mahayuti government also passed a resolution accepting that name. Then both houses of Maharashtra Assembly approved it, and this was then sent to Delhi. In Delhi, just this Monday this week, the leaders of the project affected persons of the Navi Mumbai International Airport project, they came and met the current Civil Aviation Minister Kinjarapu Rammohan Naidu, and there it was once again finalized that this will be named after Dinkar Balu Patil, the great local leader and socialist.